And Tri-County Women Veterans are proud to sponsor this episode of Central Florida Salute. Salute. Two.
Hello, welcome to Central Florida Salute. I'm your host, Bob Peters, and we're going to talk about this book along with the author, D.T. McGuff.
Exactly.
Ah, you thought I'd screw that up.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but Dale is a veteran of the Army of Vietnam.
Right.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from originally?
Originally Chicago, grew up in Minneapolis, more or less. My dad moved around a lot, for his job. Went to high school in Richmond, Virginia. And then right out of high school, I enlisted. And I was going to be drafted because I wasn't going to college and I didn't want to end up in the infantry. So I volunteered for the medical corps and I went to the infantry. Didn't quite work out the way I had hoped, but it was an amazing experience. I'll give it that.
I think anybody who's ever went in the service, they like me. When I joined the Air Force, and they promise you the moon and the stars, and all of a sudden you're nowhere near what they thought you were going to do.
Yeah, well, I had a pretty good idea that I'd end up in Vietnam, but it wasn't like a done deal. Wasn't sure that was going to happen, but it did. So,
So you got out of high school, and you were in the same scenario that I was in. So right after high school, what year did you get out?
68. Out of the service or out of high school? 68.
Yeah. See, I was around that time too, and it was the same thing. Come see me after, fulfill your military obligation.
Right. Yeah. Well, I enlisted, and then it was on a delayed enlistment program.
Yeah.
So after I graduated, then I went in August of 68.
Yeah.
Fort Benning, basic training, and then to Fort Sam Houston in Texas for the medical training.
Okay. So you enlisted, and like you said, you went to 2 different training, and then boom, you went to Vietnam, or what?
Yeah, sent me right over. Because they were shorthanded on medics, and of course, I didn't know that at the time. And they were trying to start to wind the war down a little bit, so the replacements weren't coming in very quickly. So when I went there with 4 other guys into the Bravo Company, 1st to the 5th Air Cav, and I was the only one that came out unscathed of the 4. Everybody else got wounded, and some guy even told me, he goes, something to the effect of, well, every medic that comes here gets a Purple Heart. And I said,
well... because unfortunately the enemy says, well, if I can take out a medic, I can take out a couple
of them. That's it. It's a high-risk job. So they generally only assign you for 6 months to the field. And I was in the infantry out in the jungle for those 6 months. And then I thought, my 6 months are up. Now I can go do something else and get out of sleeping in the mud, all of that. And they're going, well, we don't have any replacements. You're going to have to stay. I'm like, wait a minute, that wasn't the deal. I was supposed to do 6 and then do 6 at a rear area aid station or something like that.
Yeah.
They said, well, sorry, you can't leave until we get a replacement. And so I went and volunteered for the medevac group because I knew I could get that transferred to their outfit. And I always saw them, they used to come in and pick up our casualties, and I thought, here these guys, they come, they fly in, they go home, they eat in a mess hall, they take showers, they get to sleep in beds. It sounded like a pretty good deal,
Better than what you were doing?
Better than what I was doing, but it turned out to be quite a bit more dangerous, it was a big target when you're going into these areas, and you never know what's going to happen, but So there's a bunch of stories. The first half of the book is about my experience as a combat medic in and with a with a platoon, second platoon within the Bravo Company. And the second half of the book is my experiences with medevac helicopters and being a medic on those. That picture on the cover was actually taken from the new, what's the Army newspaper called now? I can't think of it.
The Army Times?
It was something like that, and that we happened to have a photographer with us this day that was one of the worst days of my entire year over there. And we just made a lot of noise trying to evacuate this guy who accidentally shot himself in the foot. And the helicopter came, hooked him on the hoist, was all ready to go up, took him about 3 feet off the ground, and then the medic is waving, you know, I mean, and of course I'm standing right under it, and it's noisy, and he's waving at me, and I'm going, I don't know, what do you want me to do? And somebody on the radio finally said, you know, take him off the hoist's broke. So they couldn't hoist him up. So they went and they couldn't do anything with the hoist, so they had to, there's a device on the hoist arm that fires basically fires a bullet through the cable and cuts it, which is what they did, because they couldn't pull it back up, and they couldn't fly with it hanging down, you know, like that. And so they came back around, and I lifted the guy on my shoulders, and they came down and were hovering, you know, maybe 8 feet above my head. And the medic on that aircraft got out on the skid to pull that guy in after I'd let go of him. So that was, and this whole operation took hours and hours and hours. You know, first they couldn't find us, and we were popping smoke, and you know, and that night we probably got what we deserved, because with all the noise we made and all of the, you know,
You attracted a crowd.
we attracted a crowd, and they let us have it pretty good with a mortar attack in the middle of the night, and there were a lot of casualties and a lot of KIAs, and it all started because of this one little medevac thing that we did, you know, when we were sitting on it. The title of the chapter about that is called The Well, and we found this water spot, you know, that they were using, the enemy was using for water. And it took so long to do all of that stuff to get with the medevac helicopter. It got too late because we didn't move at night. We generally dug in at night, and we just barely got dug in. But we were like sitting on the bullseye, you know, because you knew that the enemy knew precisely where that well was, you know, and we were all, you know, basically all set up around it like that, and they just dropped in 30, 40 mortars, and not a single one of them landed outside the perimeter. Every one of them landed inside. So we had like 5 KIAs and 7 or 8 wounded just from that one night. And that was a big...
Now, you rescued this guy,
Yeah.
but you didn't get on the helicopter and go out too? I thought you were
No,
supposed to be
at
out.
that time I was in the infantry. And so
okay.
I
You were
was
not part of that.
I wasn't part of the medevac
You were
at that
just
point.
bringing him over.
We just were using them to evacuate this guy who had accidentally shot himself in the foot.
Yeah. So I can understand why you wanted to go with the helicopter after that. Yeah.
Well, then all of a sudden, to get out of the, you know, I mean the lifestyle. You live in the jungle, and you know, I think I went one time 72 days without taking a shower or changing my clothes. And, you know, I mean, you're sleeping in the dirt and the mud and the rain and everything, and it was an unpleasant place to be, basically.
Yeah, all kinds of critters and everything
Yeah,
going around.
so when I got with the medevac, I thought this was a good deal, you know, clean clothes, showers, food, you know, mess hall. It seemed like a good deal to me, but it was a dangerous job.
You know,
And,
any of those jobs are dangerous.
Yeah, and so I got shot down twice doing a medevac like that, and
They shot your chopper down?
yeah. The second time we got shot up, we didn't crash, but they were able to get back to base, you know. But the first time they shot, I think there was one of the maintenance techs said he found over 100 bullet holes in the helicopter, and no one got hit. No one got hit.
Oh, that's, well.
And how that was even possible, it still boggles my mind, you know.
And somebody looking down on you.
apparently on all of us at that particular time, because nobody got a scratch, and the helicopter was ruined. They couldn't salvage it after they basically pick it up and fly it back to the base, with a Chinook or something like that, and they basically said, no,
Scrap.
we're not going to fix this one.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was my eye-opening experience to what medevac was like, sleeping in the bed and all the good stuff was like that, and then all of a sudden the risk that was
The risk
involved
factor, yeah.
was pretty high.
Yeah. So you did, how long were you embedded with the like, how many days with the infantry, and then
7 months with the infantry,
and then how much with
and
the
then 5 months with medevac. So it was a year-long tour.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a little more than a year.
Just about a year.
Oh, that's about a year. Yeah, that's right. 7 to 5 is 12.
Yeah.
So you did one tour?
One tour.
You didn't run back down and reenlist?
They asked me to stay, and because they had the same problem. They were thrilled to have me come and volunteer, because they were getting just green medics from the United States, and you don't know enough after medical training at least then. Not now. It's so much more sophisticated.
I'm
The
sure,
militaries are. These medics are EMTs and have sophisticated training and equipment and stuff like that.
You were a kid out of high school.
10 weeks medical training. 2 of those was how to work in a hospital, and the rest was, so 8 weeks of just watching movies about everything that could possibly happen to you, and how to, deal with some of the injuries and stuff. But the training you didn't really start to learn anything until you were, is on-the-job training, basically.
Oh, yeah. You can tell everybody about this and that, but until you're actually there and have to deal with it, that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, it was, and I also realized when I was in the infantry that if anything ever happened to me, I was in trouble, because these guys didn't know anything, about. All they carried a pressure bandage, and that's it. They didn't know how to do anything, any life-saving type things. So I learned, and I took it very seriously that, I wanted to do a good job. So when I got out of the medical training, my buddy and I, we used to sit up nights in the latrine and study our, for the tests and things like that. And he and I graduated first. He was first, and I graduated second in the class. So we each got a promotion, another stripe. And I was proud of myself, because I think I did the best I could, to learn how to do what I was going to end up doing, but it was inadequate, the training. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
A lot of it was just learning on the job, and that's tough. It's very stressful when somebody's going, get the medic up here, and it's on you to do whatever needs to be done, to help these guys. And fortunately for me, I never lost a single guy in my platoon, and that was incredibly lucky. So basically you end up being like and you're not, it's not like you're getting shot at every day, you're plowing through.
But you have the mental stress.
Oh, it is. And anyway, that was, not to belabor the point.
What prompted you? Was it like a theory for you,
Oh, to write the book?
Yeah.
Well, I started to say I had lost my job when I was 50 years old, and
What did you do?
well, I worked in television for 15 years as a producer and a director, mostly with ABC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
New York?
Chicago? No, I worked in Florida. So I lived in Florida. So I worked out of WTSP TV, which is in Tampa.
We are a not-for-profit.
Mm-hmm.
Central Florida, salute you too. And the guy who holds the not-for-profit is a gentleman named Bill Suki.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I've heard you mention him.
Yeah, he ran Orange TV, I think it was, or Ocala TV, I'm not sure. But he also did the documentary Lady Wasp.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a tremendous guy who cares very much about our military. Mm-hmm. And so he and we're under the Florida Arts and Media that's who we are.
Yeah.
He's proud to help us out to do this. So yeah.
So anyway, I ended up, after working in television, I went and got a master's degree and got a job with a corporation doing training and communications, specialty training, interpersonal, organizational communication, that kind of stuff. And I ended up working with a company that was a huge global organization. And they got involved in something that was, looked sordid. And it ruined their reputation. I mean, it's 187,000 people worldwide.
Wow.
All lost their jobs because of the government went after them because they were involved with they were tax consultants and they worked with Enron. I don't know if you remember that episode.
I heard about Enron.
Yeah, and then they were involved with them, and so it looked initially like they had done something wrong, and of course they didn't. But by that time, the company was destroyed, and I was laid off.
Guilty by association.
Yeah, and I was 50 years old, and it's like nobody wants to hire somebody who's 50 years old because they know you're going to use your benefits, and health benefits and stuff like that. And I must have sent out 500 resumes. I couldn't get a job. So I just decided I was going to. People were telling me I would tell stories, and they'd say, "Man, that's really fascinating. You should write a book." And so I had all this time on my hands, and I figured, no time like the present, And so I just started writing the individual stories and then pieced them all together so that there's, other than these episodes, you can see my change, from being totally naive and stupid, basically, to being quite disillusioned with the whole thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, coming out of school, 18-year-old kid, and you're all of a sudden in the middle of a jungle, and
Yeah.
I wasn't really prepared for this.
No, I mean when I first got there and they flew me out, they didn't tell me anything about how to live in the jungle. I mean, how much food you should carry, how much water you should carry. I didn't have any idea how to survive. And when I went out with a helicopter by myself, sitting on a bunch of cases of sea rations, just another piece of supply, coming out, and they dumped me off in the jungle with this company, Bravo Company. Didn't know a soul, and just on my own. Unfortunately for me, a couple of the guys. My best friend Jack Sherman and another guy, Dennis O'Donnell, took me under their wing and taught me how to basically live in the jungle. When we ate, when you didn't, when you couldn't heat your food, when you had to keep, all the little things, and what do you put in your backpack? Carrying 50, 60 pounds of equipment around and crawling through the jungle, with all that on your back. It was the best shape I'd ever been in my entire life after basic training and all of that stuff. And it still kicked my butt.
Yeah.
I mean, I got there because we dig in every night, a 6x6 hole, and fill sandbags. And for the first week or so, I get in the hole, because I'm trying to be one of the guys and help out. And so we're digging this hole, and my friend Jack, he goes, "Doc," he goes, "just get out of the hole." He says, "We're going to be here all night with you doing that." So he jumped in and finished the hole. But after a few weeks of that, I was able to kind of contribute more to the physically demanding stuff that was going on. But
well, I'm sure you went through a lot.
I did that.
Yeah. I know guys who they really appreciate the medics.
Oh yeah.
Because without you guys, you know. But
well, there's some pretty good stories in there, so I hope you'll enjoy reading it.
Yeah, and I give you a lot of credit. I mean, what you went through, and but if people want to get the book,
pretty much anywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you can order it from anywhere, or the publisher, which is Author House, you can order it from them.
So that others may live.
That was the motto of, I think it's still a picture on the back. That was the motto of the medevac, so that others may live.
Oh, yeah.
And other military things have picked that up since then, and still use that phrase.
Yeah. So you got out and you went to work, and at 50, you're out of a job.
Out of a job.
What'd you do then, my friend?
Well, I never got to work professionally again. I just ran into a guy who was a contractor, and he was doing work on my house, and I was just sitting around. He says, listen, he says, if you want to do some of the grunt work for me and clean up and all that, he says, I'll take it off your bill. And I said, oh, okay. And I ended up working for him for 10 years after that, doing house remodeling and things like that, which I didn't know anything about. But he taught me all of the, the skills, how to do electrical and plumbing and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I actually enjoyed it. It was really kind of a fun job because you got to see what you did, that day, how you took something that was a mess and made it look good again and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was very satisfying.
So now you're retired
Retired.
and living the life in the villages.
In the villages, yeah. Pretty sweet.
So have you worked on your golf game or what?
I play a little bit. I just can't get that excited about it, I mean, I get more irritated with it than I do have fun. So, but I do play occasionally. Not a lot, but occasionally.
You belong to the Vietnam veterans there?
I
1036?
No, I joined the VFW when I lived in St. Charles in Illinois, and it was. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it was a lot of sad souls in there, and they were troubled. I mean, a lot of these guys. So was I, for that matter. I mean, when I got out of the service, I knew something was wrong. I was angry and bitter and just, could lose my temper easily. I had all of the PTSD symptoms,
You've been diagnosed?
Oh, yeah.
And
And I have 80% disability from the VA for that, fortunately, because I couldn't work after that, and well, I did work. I mean, I did my professional jobs and worked in television and all that kind of stuff, but I was struggled all the time with depression and drinking too much, like you were saying before, and I just finally really had kind of a breakdown, and that's when I finally got hooked up with the VA, and they got me on the right track with some meds and stuff like that. So I'm much better now than I was.
yeah, the VA, some people knock it, but I'll tell you what, anything that I've dealt with or people that I know who, the VA does tremendous work, and there's a lot of
They do.
great people, volunteers,
They do.
and, I can't say enough good things about them,
Yeah, I agree with that.
My father-in-law was a World War II veteran, and near the end of his life, the VA took very good care of him,
Yeah. It wasn't always the case. I mean, back when I was in, the VA was considered, the last resort to go to a VA hospital, that was the last resort back then.
Yeah.
But they've completely changed and turned that around, and they generally do a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but they do a pretty good job. So that helped me and got me back on straight and narrow, and I still struggle with certain things. Don't like being around a whole lot of people at once.
And you don't like to have your back to the wall.
I've
always had that. I don't like to, if I'm in a room, I want my back to the wall.
Yeah, I used to be like that. I've gotten a lot better. I mean, we'd go out walking in the woods. My wife would go, let's go for a hike in the woods. And I go, okay. It wasn't my favorite thing to do, because there was one of the things they do to train you is they teach you how to scan an area, for movement. And that's all I did when I go on a walk. I was just constantly scanning the woods for movement, basically. And I'd catch some, and it would turn out to be a deer or something like that, which no one else saw, but I that little bit of movement was all it took. And I was nervous, a little jumpy and stuff. If somebody came up behind me, and I didn't hear them, that would startle me. I still get startled a little bit.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing much better.
But I'm doing much better, much
I'm
better.
glad to hear
yeah.
that.
And I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk with you and mention my book. And
Well, and we're glad to have you. Central Florida Salute YouTube. We're all about honoring, remembering, and educating, and we like to get the younger people involved, and to hear stories like people like yourself, what you went through. They never know unless we did programs like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and they could never really appreciate. I've done about 500 shows
Yeah.
from World War II, modern day warriors,
yeah,
Vietnam.
I watched
Korea.
a bunch of them.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Did you hit like and subscribe?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tell everybody do that because when we look for sponsors, they look and see how many views you had,
Oh,
and how
I
many
see.
likes you had.
Yeah.
So-
Right. Well, I'll go back on Facebook and do. I don't usually go on Facebook, but I'll go on Facebook and put in a thumbs up on it and stuff.
Oh, good. We appreciate it, and we appreciate everything you've done. So, but I'm glad to hear that you're doing much better. I hope the book, you sell a lot of these books.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Well, and it's opening young people's eyes,
Well, I gave a copy of this to when I was in the medical, trying to get my head right, and the psychiatrist that I was talking to, he was a really great guy, and I hit it off with him really well when we sit there and just kind of chit chat and stuff. So I gave him a copy of the book, and the next time I saw him, he went, "Oh my God." He goes, "I can't believe what you did, what you went through." He goes, "I had no concept." And this is a guy who was in the Air Force for 20 years, He said, "I had no concept what you guys were going through." And he said, when you first came in, and I looked, and he said PTSD, he went, "Oh, here we go again,
Another one,
one," But he changed his tune after reading the book, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, well, you educated him too.
I did, and he was a really good guy. And so anyway, that's my story. And if you have any questions after you read the book, the cards have my email address and stuff on the back. And
Do you want to? You already mentioned where you could get the book. Do you want to give out any more information? Is your email or anything like that? It's up to you. You don't have to, But just go to the bookstore.
it's any bookstore or Amazon. Pretty much anybody has it. So.
And the book is titled "So That Others May Live." And the important part of a medic, and I tell you what, I was Air Force, but I didn't see anywhere near what you saw or been part of. There's things happened around me, but I was just, I was never shot at. I was there when a plane blew up and was bounced out of bed. But that was a one-time thing, and
Right. Right.
But to be embedded in the jungle, sleeping
Yeah.
in the mud and everything, it had to really play some mind games.
And
I've known
it's
a
a tough
couple.
life.
I know a couple of medics, and I know the guys who used to go out in the helicopter and pick up the bodies.
Yeah, see, that was one thing we didn't do, is if they were KIAs, because the time was too valuable to get out and save lives. And if somebody was killed, then they usually brought a different helicopter in to pick them up.
I forget what they call them.
I don't know. I mean, occasionally we would, if these guys are out in the jungle and they had one guy that was killed, we weren't going to just make them sit there with this guy, So we did take a couple of guys that were killed, and brought them back.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to say before we say goodbye, or any particular story or something you'd like people to know?
Well, I think what I'm always curious about is when people read the book is what story resonated with you the most. What was the thing that really caught your attention, and it's a different for everybody. I mean, everybody has a different particular favorite story.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of good stories. I think that it's anybody that gets it would be happy reading it, or at least moved, by reading it.
Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap this up once again. It's
All right.
So That Others May Live. You can find it in a lot of bookstores. And pick it up. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate you
And
having
welcome
me.
home, brother.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to say goodbye.
Okay.
And since you've seen some of my shows, you know how we do this, right?
I think I got the gist of it earlier.
Okay. To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time. Thanks, buddy.
Since 2009, Project SOS has assisted our veterans both overseas and here at home to overcome medical issues, homelessness, and disabilities. Initially, our efforts resulted in over 22 clinics opened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Recently, as troops have been withdrawn, we have concentrated on issues here at home. During this past year, we have been able to distribute 42 motorized wheelchairs and numerous mobility devices to our local veterans who have served in World War II and up to and including Afghanistan. We continue to offer solutions to our local homeless veterans in the Ocala National Forest and other Central Florida locations. Project SOS Support Our Soldiers needs your assistance to continue helping a growing homeless veterans population. Over-the-counter medications and personal hygiene supplies are a